They did an amazing job with the feeding the 5,000. Again, this comes back to that Jewishness that this guy has. He's like, it's very much like a we are the first, we are the best mentality. And there was a couple of times when he actually messed up, right? Welcome to The Snipe Life, where we look at creativity through the lens of Christianity. And today we're taking a look at The Chosen, Season 3, Episode 8, the finale, the feeding the 5,000, everything huge. We're going to jump right in because we're talking about the second portion of the feeding the 5,000, talking specifically about the miracle and kind of what's going on here. In the last one, we talked a little bit more about the amalgamation between the 4,000 and the 5,000. In Scripture, we get the feeding the 4,000, and then we get the feeding the 5,000. They're kind of two separate events that happen, and they have different details that go along with them. And so it's not just a retelling of something from a different gospel. We actually see both of these events happen in the same gospels. And so it's interesting to see how The Chosen kind of brought them together, and we see the evidence of that in Scripture. But here, let's take a look at the actual miracle that happened here as Jesus is finishing up his teaching, and then he begins to feed everybody. Let's check this out.
Son, go and work in the vineyard today. And he answered, I will not. But afterward he changed his mind, and he went. And he went to the other son, and said the same. And he answered, I will go, sir. But did not go. Which of the two sons did the will of the father?
So this is a funny behind the scenes moment. We did this scene a lot. So this is one moment when we had a ton of people out here, but there was actually different groups that came out at different times. And so there'd be like, a certain color group. I think there's like purple group and orange group and green group and whatever. So they had these different groups come out at certain times so that not everybody would get dehydrated and overheated and really, really messed up out in this field, because there's no shadow, there's no cover whatsoever in this field. It was very, very hot. You can see everybody just sweating up a storm. It was really, really rough. But they did this sweeping shot to see everybody answer this question. And so you see everybody say the first, and like we were here during multiple takes of this. So it was really cool to see, this, and there's no way to know what take they took of that or what's happening, because each group did multiple takes and all this different stuff. But it was very cool to see the behind the scenes of that kind of happen.
Many of you are from cities such as Tyre and Sidon, cities that have rejected God for centuries.
Where did you find that?
At the bottom of my bag.
And so obviously this is an actor that was put in between the crowd, and you can see the rest of the crowd around them. Those aren't actors. It's just random people that were in the crowd here. Really, really cool.
Now that was in there. It's a little stale, but it'll do.
You've been out here for days, and you just discovered it?
I followed some men who told me we were coming to watch a fight.
A fight?
Everyone was just in such a hurry.
Does anyone have any food? No. Food?
Your name is Andrew, yes?
Yes, Telemachus.
Wanted to say thank you again for everything
I'm
you...
not the one healed your father, but I can certainly pass that along.
You've been asking about food.
Yes.
I want to share what I have.
So this is obviously the boy with the loaves and fish. Now, since this is an amalgamation of the feeding the 4,000 and 5,000, obviously The Chosen has been calling it the feeding the 5,000, even though it has mixtures of both of those. And this is one of the things that's taken directly from the feeding the 5,000 is the 5 loaves and 2 fish. And as the number 5 and 2, this is a big kind of passion moment for The Chosen, as their company is called 5 and 2, and Dallas has 5 and 2 tattooed on his body. And this is one of the big catalysts that started The Chosen altogether. So of course they're going to choose this as the moment here.
Zombies can feed one family of the thousands.
I just wanted to do what I could.
The kingdom of heaven
You okay?
is like a treasure hidden in a field.
And I love that too. I just wanted to do what I could is the answer to that, because that's Dallas's mindset as he goes into The Chosen and kind of walks through everything. I just wanted to do what I could.
Which a man found and covered up. Then in his joy, he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field.
What do you mean by that?
No.
Again, that's another moment we were there for where they did multiple takes of that, and the guy's like, what do you mean by that? So we got to see a little bit of these lines kind of going back and forth, which is really fun.
I don't... Look,
Let me say it another way.
instead of... We should...
It is like a merchant in search of fine pearls.
Middle of his sermon.
There's no way to feed these one pearl of great value. Went and sold all that he had and bought it. Listen carefully, because this is accessible to all of you, regardless of race or creed.
It's the last thing we need
The
to do.
kingdom is so valuable that once you have glimpsed it,
Now, they're all freaking out, obviously. Now, we're hearing all of these other parables that appear. These don't actually appear in Scripture. So if we look back at the feeding of the 5,000, we don't actually hear Jesus talk about any of this. I mean, it's pretty short. Like, it's just this section here, right? Like, that's all it is. So we don't really see any of these parables being spoken. If we go to the feeding of the 4,000, it's pretty much the same. We don't hear him talk about any of these parables and stuff, but they were there for 3 days in the feeding of the 4,000. So obviously he had to say something, right? And we think that Jesus would have repeated these parables over and over again to different groups of people, since there's no internet, to spread around his message to everybody. This would be the way that, he did that. And so it's very reasonable to think that he would speak about these parables to different people. But if we look at the feeding of the 5,000, we see that, people are kind of freaking out a little bit about what they're going to do. So now when it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a desolate place and the day is over. Send the crowds away and go into the villages and to buy food for themselves." But Jesus said they need not go away. You give them something to eat. And he said to them, "We only have 5 loaves and 2 fish." So this is pretty accurate to what's going on, other than it not being nighttime quite yet. So obviously this shot looks way better during the day. So I'm sure that's why they did that. It's not nighttime here, though. So we don't get to nighttime until way later on when everybody's actually going home.
it's worth parting with everything you have in order to gain it.
We shouldn't burden him.
Even though to others you might look like a fool, throwing away your life savings to buy what would look to others an unremarkable field.
Can you imagine being Jonathan Rumi here, though? Like, you're literally in front of 5,000 people giving this monologue, right? Which he did several times. And there was a couple of times when he actually messed up, right? And I'm sure that'd be so nerve-wracking, looking at all of these faces, and having everybody focus on you as you're speaking these things, having to remember your lines, knowing that if you mess up, like, you're wasting 5,000 people's time. Like, oh man, that'd be so nerve-wracking.
But you know of the hidden treasure. That makes it worth everything. Have you come closer to hear better?
No, there is an issue.
My friends, if you'll excuse me, I must speak with my students a moment.
So as they're filming this section, we don't actually get the gist of what's going on here because they don't do it in order, right? They're doing very specific scenes at specific times, and it's always changing. It's always new things, right? And so we never really know exactly what the order of things are or what's exactly happening. And so it's kind of hard to put everything together, as you're kind of watching them film and do everything. It was really interesting to watch that, though.
Rabbi, people are out of food. Yeah, some have been without food for days, others have traveled a great distance.
So, give them something to eat.
We're out of food. They're out of...
Again, we come to this. So they don't need to go away, give them something to eat. They don't necessarily go into that quite yet. They kind of tie all of this into the dialogue here.
Food. Is it time to send them home?
Well, at this point, they're so hungry and tired, if we send them home, they'll faint along the way.
You knew they were hungry.
Yes, Judas. I can see them while I'm talking.
That's a funny line. I love that.
Well, this is a tough one. Where can we buy some bread for all these people?
We only came with a little over 200 denarii.
Again, this is a discussion that they have. I don't know if it's in the book of Matthew. No, it's not. Let me see where it actually is. Let me see where that's located. So let's see. So it's in all four gospels. So let's check the other ones real fast, and just talk through it real fast. So go to Mark 6. Yeah, feed the 5,000 towns got there. Yeah, right here. So in Mark, this is where this talks about it here. And of course, Judas would be the one saying this most likely because he was the keeper of the money. But verse 37, it says, "But he answered them, you give them something to eat. And they said to him, shall we go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give it them to eat? And he said to them, how many loaves do you have? Go and see." And when they had found out, they said 5 and 2 fish. And then he commanded them to sit down in groups on the grass. So they sat down in groups by hundreds and by 50s. And taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and said a blessing, and broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples to set before the people. So we can see the amalgamation here of the different gospels kind of being used in the dialogue. If you're watching this video right when it released, we're actually in Israel right now. Me and Vanessa are hosting a trip with a bunch of people, 34 people to be exact, and we're going all over Israel and looking at everything that Jesus did and where he was and where he lived. And man, it's crazy. But we want you guys to come on our next trip. We're going to have a trip in January of 2024, and we'd love to have you be a part of that. If you want to do that, you can sign up with the links down in the description down below. And it's really easy. All you need to do is have $500 for the deposit and then pay off the rest of it 90 days before the trip is done. This is going to be an awesome trip, and I have an amazing host lined up named Isaac David, who runs a YouTube channel called Daily Disciple. He talks about all different stuff from pop culture of Christianity to progressive Christianity and how that's a harmful thing in society today. There's a lot of things that we really agree on, and I love the way that he teaches and talks. So I wanted to invite him on this trip so that he could have some interaction with you guys, and so that we could get him in some of our content when we go to Israel next year. Anyway, I'd love for you to be a part of that. If you want to sign up, the links are in the description down below.
Rabbi, that's not even enough to get a little bit for everyone. I wouldn't even know how to calculate that.
Matthew and I can calculate that. That's really easy.
Maybe if we go into the cities, we can negotiate something on credit.
Yes. Yes, that could work.
Negotiate with whom? The closest city is Abila, and its entire population is here. It's 9 miles away, and even if we raided every house in town, we'd have to find a way to bring it back here, and it would still only feed a fraction of the masses.
Can you bring me anything? Surely there's some food from someone, even a small amount.
5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. But what is this for so many?
Barley loaves.
2 fish and 5 barley loaves. Thank you for clarifying.
This is humiliating.
John? He will take care of it if he wants to.
We'll come back to this in another point.
What are you afraid of?
As we talk through Simon's journey and kind of what he's going through. But we see here as Jesus takes the food and he begins to do what he's going to do with it.
This is wonderful bread, Telemachus.
I know it's not enough.
Oh, it's enough for me. I can do a lot with this. Thank you. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth.
Did they find some bread?
If they've got bread, be ready. We'll probably be first.
Again, this comes back to that Jewishness that this guy has. He's like, it's very much like a we are the first, we are the best mentality, which these high Jews would have had for sure.
Feed them.
What has changed? Are we...
Organize the people into groups of 50 and 100.
Again, comes back to
Gather
that
up
scripture.
12 baskets to distribute the loaves and fish. Was I unclear?
This is one of those scenes that it's interesting because reading this as, you know, as scripture, we often forget that, like, we have these, you know, we have our biases when it comes to scripture because we imagine certain things in a certain way. This is actually a discussion that me and Vanessa had right after watching this episode because she was really, really struggling with, well, not struggling with, but she envisioned this miracle happening in a different way than it did. And so, you know, she was kind of pushing back a little bit on that. And I've envisioned this in a different way as well. So it's definitely different than what I probably would have done or would have thought to do. And so it's interesting the way that they put it together. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Like, did you struggle with the way any of these miracles were done or any biblical moments that you're like, I thought that was going to be different. Like I would probably have envisioned it this way. Did you guys struggle with that at all? I'd love to know. So let's continue on.
No. This feels familiar. Maybe.
Now he says it feels familiar because of the wedding, right? So the wedding, turning water into wine, he's taking care of all the people that are, you know, at the wedding. It's very, very similar to that.
Let's go.
Does anyone have a basket? Please borrow a basket. Anyone? Oh, you? Please.
Come on.
Yes, that's important. Yes, over here.
Feed them.
Anyone?
Yes.
Anyone have a basket? Anyone? The kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed that a man took and sowed in his field. Anyone have a basket? It is the smallest of all seeds. But when it has grown, it is larger than all the garden plants. It becomes a tree so that the birds of the air can come and make their nests in its branches.
Again, teaching a lesson as all of this is going on, showing that a tiny bit of faith in the kid having faith, right? The kid bringing his food and showing them, you know, like, hey, this is all that I have, but I want to give it to you. That little bit of faith turned into this massive feeding of the 5,000.
I've got one. Come on, break up the bread. Okay, how many do we have?
There, you take some. There.
Worth the try.
You need some?
Give me some of that. You got enough? Just like that, yeah.
This was real fish, by the way, and it stunk pretty badly. After a little while in the sun, it was pretty rancid in some locations of the set.
There's anyone need some?
It's better than the tail.
That's the last of it. Yeah, that's the last of it. All right, Marcus, you can have your basket back.
I love this portion. I'm going to skip through a little bit because of the music, but obviously they have this amazing moment where the baskets are filled, and then they go and they continue to you know, give out food and give out food and give out food, and they come back still with full baskets, maybe even more than what they left with, right? It's this miraculous moment of God doing what he's going to do. Really, really, really cool. So yeah, they continue to go through here. They obviously feed everybody, and that is the feeding the 5,000. We'll watch a little bit of this, but not too much. I'll show you this little moment here as well, where we saw this filmed a bunch of times as well. This moment with Jesus here. Simon's just like getting more infuriated with every single miracle that's happening.
I've kept you here all this time giving you spiritual food. But you clearly need actual food now. So let's eat.
And then they were given instruction just to go crazy and to start to clap and do everything. And then we get into this epic moment with this music that is certainly going to get copyrighted, so I'll fast forward through it. But we see this awesome sequence of events as they're handing out the food, and they did this in multiple takes as they're focusing on each disciple. Very, very cool. This guy is actually a normal extra that's in the show. He's been in a lot of stuff, I believe, and all these different people that are here with their kids and different stuff. Very, very cool. Very, very cool for sure. Let me know if you see yourself in any of this footage. Me and Vanessa decided not to be extras so that we could get more behind the scenes for you guys and check out what was going on. Because of that, we got to meet a lot of the cast and crew and different people that really, it was a really great moments for sure. But that's the Feeding the 5,000. That's the actual, moment of the miracle in the Chosen season 3, episode 8. They did an amazing job with the Feeding the 5,000. One of my favorite shots is actually the nighttime shot where we have Jesus just preaching during the nighttime. One of my absolute favorite moments right here. And this shot, this night, first of all, was amazing. It was one of the coolest things that we did on set. Was the very last night of filming. It was the third day, the very last night. We're actually standing off to the right side of this frame, past the Roman soldiers and everything, and we're standing next to all the kids from the Gen Z documentary, and we're hanging out with a bunch of the crew, and we're just taking pictures and stuff. If you've seen on our channel, you can actually go back and watch. We recorded a whole 20-minute thing from the disciples as each of them got a chance to speak to the audience at the very end of this filming, and just thanking them for coming out and how amazing the 3 days was and everything. But this shot right here, I actually have a picture. Let me see if I can pull it up real fast and show you. Let me see. So I have a bunch of pictures from the Feeding the 5,000, but I actually have a picture of this specific moment because I was standing behind the video cart where they the guy who's doing audio for this shot. He was sitting right in front of me, and so I could see the screen that they were filming on. And so I'll show you some of these pictures if I can. This is from the night. So these are the Gen Z kids that are right next to us. And so you might recognize some of them. These kids right here, all the Gen Z kids that were coming to visit for the filming. This is Catherine Warnock, who's the head of Chosen original content. Let me see what else is in here. Let's see. Oop, is it not letting me do that? Let me close this one. Yeah, let me do that. This is a picture of Jordan Ross playing Frisbee, which is pretty epic. There's those kids. Again there. We see this is us. Like I said, we're off to the side. Here's all the actors, and we see the fires. Those fires are propane fires, I believe. Maybe not. They may have had something else in them, but they are real fires that are there. So very, very cool. This is a huge scrim that they had set up in order to have it be basically like moonlight in this scene. And so you can see that there. More of those shots there of the nighttime from our perspective. You see these, which are meant to kind of be firelight or torchlight on someone's face as they're filming. Here's James, and now these torches are actually powered by propane, which is a very, very cool thing. They're standing next to Jesus there. Some blurry pictures, a moon picture. I can't remember what's in here, but yeah, I think that's it for that. But I do have a picture somewhere. I guess it's not in in these ones. But yeah, anyway, so we were right there during this filming. One of my favorite moments of the Feeding the 5,000. But thank you so much for checking out this video. This is actually a small portion of a much larger live stream that we did for our patrons. And if you want to check out that entire live stream, you can go over to our Patreon at patreon.com/thesnipelife. This is the best way by far to help support us in this ministry and to see what we're doing. We're actually in Israel right now, and you guys can see a ton of extra content that we're only posting on our Patreon. And we'd love for you to be over there so that we can have some conversation and just chat with you guys, get to know you a little bit. Anyway, if you want to sign up for that, we'd love to have you over there, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.